In his book Dark Ecology, Timothy Morton describes the human species as a hyperobject that is so large, complex, and massively distributed that it is unthinkable beyond the scale of human empirical comprehension. We are part of it, yet we do not see our complicity in its agency. Morton reminds us that as humans, we are part of an entity that is now a geophysical force on the planetary scale. Morton and other thinkers of object-oriented ontology try to refocus philosophical thinking away from humans as monarchs of being, as Levi Bryan formulates, understanding humans as among beings, entangled in beings, and implicated in other beings. Seeing humans as objects does not eliminate their importance, it just asks if philosophically they should be always at the center, as Ian Bogost has made clear. We humans are elements, but not the sole elements, of philosophical interest. Object-oriented ontology contends that nothing has special status, but that everything exists equally. For the purpose of this talk, I will use object-oriented ontology as my theoretical basis, analyzing our need for a new ecology to understand our current situation in both the pandemic and the Anthropocene. I'm largely following Jeffrey Jerome Cohen, who argues that this new ecology needs to be thought inhuman, reflecting a disanthropocentrism and allowing us to describe relations of objects beyond the human grasp. Gray ecology pushes our limits of understanding. It propels us beyond our own finitude, opens us to alien scales of both being, the micro and the macro, and time, the effervescent, barely glimpsed geologic in which life proceeds at a billion-year pace. In this gray ecology, reflects critical posthumanist ideas of becoming and the need to decenter a humanist subject seen as beyond the natural world. One such decentering is present in the figure of the zombie, which Sarah Juliet Lauro and Karen Embry have called the anti-subject of posthumanism, which revealed the insufficiency of the dialectical model subject-object. Yet, most interpretations of the zombie reveal a deeply ingrained anthropocentrism, fixated on the zombie as a threat to our lives, inevitably focusing the story on the survivors, but one could read zombie fictions disanthropocentrically, focusing the relations of other objects and becoming aware of the larger implications that what we are really witnessing in a zombie narrative is a form of violent, transformative renewal. From a disanthropocentric position, zombies are just another life form in the alien time scale of the Earth, one that is less destructive than humans. There's no ethical value to humans dying and zombies living. Bogost argues that ethics are relative to our human values, that preserving human life is not good in and of itself. Preservation turns out to be an object-relative concept. If an object is a system, then objects appear, generate, collapse, and hide both within and without it with great regularity. Considering the Anthropocene, the magnitude of the influence of the human species, it seems worth taking account of how zombie contagion might relate to other objects within the system. In his book The World Without Us, Alan Weisman explores the idea of what would happen to the planet if the human species suddenly vanished. He describes how nature returns, how houses and whole cities crumble, but gives a time frame of hundreds of years. Weisman's account is provocative, as most zombie fictions, with their focus on the human survivors, do not permit alien timescales of gray ecology. In most fictions, we can only see the timid beginnings of nature returning. In The Walking Dead, a few scenes play in Atlanta. The scenes focus on the chaos left by humans evacuating the city. The empty streets, the abandoned buildings, the city is a monument to what has been, a signifier of the absence of the human. Similarly, in 28 Days Later, the city of London features uncannily devoid of human presence, as our focus remains moored in human timescales. Change in the object that is the city is recognizable in relation to the human. Further along the gray ecological timescale, I Am Legend presents us with New York a few years into the global zombie pandemic. Buildings and infrastructure have cracked and started crumbling, leaving space for weeds, flowers, and grasses to claim the roads. Bushes and trees have started growing more wildly in claimed unused spaces, as have animals. Herds of wild deer roam the streets. In one scene we actually see the protagonist hunting in Times Square, which has turned into a savanna. A pride of lions sees it as a territory. And while the lions are of course hyperbole, the trajectory of nature taking hold forces us to think a gray ecology, pushes us the task of thinking of temporal space and spatial scales at unfamiliar, even monstrously gigantic. The game series The Last of Us pushes this further for a decade or two, showing cities crumbling, concrete sagging, and groundwater seeping through. Streets and buildings in the games are overgrown by grasses, moss, and vines, which slowly disintegrate the constructions. Trees have grown in the ruins of buildings. Animals inhabit the cities. The game series plays with uncanniness of Earth magnitude, displaying for us an image at once recognizable and alien, yet no ethics are involved. The human absence is neither worse nor better for the object system than is the city. Decay and destruction, growth and creation are object relative and not in and of themselves ethical values. But these are indirect influences of the zombie contagion. So what happens to non-human animals directly caught up and being zombified? In most cases, non-human zombies are mere narrative gimmicks. The common trope is the contagion between human and companion species, so pets and farm animals. In Rec, the contagion moves across the species barrier from an infected dog to the human population. In 28 Days Later, it is an infected monkey. A more eccentric example is New Zealand's horror comedy Black Sheep, a satirical take on genetic engineering and farming, centering on zombified sheep. The film works on the idea that animals kept for their use value to humans turn the tables of consumption on us and start eating humans. The categorical boundaries between the human and the environment evaporate. The anthropocentric focus is thrown into question. Extreme non-human zombie vitality can be found in the Resident Evil franchise. Here, genetically engineered viruses are released on animal populations to gauge their potential for research, thus following the anthropocentric hierarchization of non-human objects as biomatter to exploit. The games explore lab experiments on rats, dogs, spiders, bats, and suggest that all animal life can be infected by the zombifying virus. The games have zombie alligators, elephants, hyenas, and lions, which were infected when Raccoon City Zoo was overrun, and thus comment on the unintentional and unforeseen range of the ripple effects of the Anthropocene. But the alien scales of grey ecology are not just projected outward, but also provide a focus inward, smaller and faster than human perception. The obvious exploration of this microrealm of viruses, bacteria, and fungi is that the zombie is a human corpse animated by these objects. From our own human perspective, the zombie points towards endings. It is a signifier of the subject we once were. But as Cohen remarks, the opposite is actually true. Decomposition is the flourishing of bacteria, the autonomy of the world, an unyielding demonstration of the inhuman agency that resides in the pieces and substances that we totalize for a while into a body we call ours. Decay is a process of transformation. It seems final, fatal, and terminal, but this activity is future-directed, creative and uninterested in our mourning. But as with the macro scale, most zombie fictions do not allow for an extended view of the micro scale. In The Walking Dead's second season, a view of the zombies as entangled beings with vitality, that is, the capacity to act as quasi-agents or forces with trajectories, propensities, or tendencies of their own, is rejected outright. The season offers an attempt to treat zombies as humans becoming with a virus, which fails when the group of survivors violently reinforce the subject-object divide. The season's antagonist brutally demonstrates that the zombies are objects that can be mutilated without prejudice. Shooting a zombie again and again, watching it get back up every time, drives home the idea that no human could be treated this way. The violence of the hierarchical divide between what is dead and what is alive centrally motivates our ethical disengagement. Zombies are seen as monstrous other, as dead matter, devoid of agency or vitality, which allows us to destroy and erase it. But more recent zombie fictions have dissolved the boundaries that allow us to see zombies as dead matter. In The Girl with All the Gifts, we encounter several stages of zombies, suggesting development and trajectory. In the film, a fungal infection has infected most humans and turned them into hungries, fast-moving zombies violently attacking the humans. Dormant until activated, the hungries are described by military and science as non-human and motivated by the fungus's drive to spread. The fungus has taken control of the body. This anthropocentric view allows the destruction of hungries without guilt or doubt. Further, the film undermines this view when humans encounter hungries that do not blindly follow instinct but seem to enact human behaviors, such as a woman pushing a pram, while all the other hungries stand around her and wait for sensory input to activate their inert urges. The complexity of the entanglement is exemplified by another variant of the hungries, a group of children infected while they still were inside the wombs of their mothers and thus partially immune. Exhibiting the mindless drive to spread the fungus only when provoked, these children appear to be human, with reason, emotion, and agency. But they are infected nonetheless. Science starts the film with the hypothesis that they are not children, but rather that the fungus presents as children, and that the children are mimicking human behavior and that there is no higher brain function. Clearly based in the subject-object hierarchy and used as ethical insulation against the empathy, the children are used for experimentation and for study, discarded at once they lose their usefulness. The children are in fact post-human beings entangled with other life and matter on a microscale. As Victoria Carrington points out, the children are an evolutionary leap, a new form of life suited to changed conditions and the rise of the New World Order. They ask the question, why should we have to die for you to live, and then release the spores that kill all the humans? Here the film decides against an anthropocentric view, allowing the symbiotic fungal-human relationship to flourish. The world becomes post-human, moving into a grey ecology. How deeply the grey ecology of the film is entangled with the fungus becomes obvious in its development in the human body. Some depictions of the infected show them stationary, waiting for an external stimulus to engage with. Swaying in place, the hungries resemble overgrown trees with rashes blooming on their skin. The fungus actively changes the human body, decomposing it from the inside and growing on its outside. It becomes a source of nutrients for the next stage of the fungus. The fungus grows vines and roots on which sporangia develop hard shells with more spores to spread. It is this image that perfectly encapsulates the grey ecology of the entangled objects. All hierarchies of matter completely fade into nothingness as fungal growth makes use of the human to usher in a new world. The suggestion that human body functions as a source for another world via the changing metaphor of the zombie is also at the heart of Carolina Helsgaard's Ever After. Shifting discourse towards the fantastic, the film enacts the zombie contagion as nature's way to rid herself of humanity. Zombies are understood as a form of vibrant matter. On their dead bodies grow plants, moss, fungi, which turn them into living gardens and make use of their decomposing matter. The zombie becomes the composting ground for new life. With the lack of new humans to infect and consume, the zombie would return to a state of rest in which the natural processes of decomposition take over. The alien timescale of Earth magnitude, combined with the entanglements of being on a microscale inside our bodies, thus provide the fertile ground for a new world, a world that will live, which will adapt to a post-human existence and a will to move beyond the Anthropocene. Zombie fictions allow us to imagine this world without us, to explore the possibilities of an ecology that does not privilege the human but is decentered, a grey ecology. Thank you.